There's an important subject that we're dealing here that's dealing with the very key word here that I know it offends a lot of people to understand this, but at times when we talk about the word prostitute that's on the board here, we tend to always view that as something sexual, but we are involved in intercourse with our speech that is called intercourse. And not to get vile, but we understand that we even have a term called oral intercourse, but we don't realize with our vocabulary, we're engaged in oral intercourse with the secular world, or this harlot of Revelation spoken of, the harlot of Babylon. And throughout Scripture, even in the book of Proverbs, much of the admonition given to a young man was about him avoiding this unclean prostitute. And it's interesting that even the terminology for a surname, which is only used for the purpose of tagging someone in the Roman civil system of commerce, it means someone that was unclean. In the Old Covenant, the Israelites were to stay away from those that were of the nations, which now we refer in modern times as Gentiles. So these were people that were only living for the flesh. They had no spirituality, and therefore they did many vile practices. And eventually the people of God sometimes intermingled with them and then took on their practices. And this is what's happened with Christianity today. It is intermingled with the world, and they think they can be in bed with this world of evil, adopt their ways, adopt pagan practices such as Christmas, that is nothing to do than anything other than worshiping Nimrod and his birthday and the worship of the sun god all around December 25th coming up. I'm sure I'm going to get some hate mail on this one. But the truth is truth. And if you're doing something paganistic, do not believe that God's blessing will be on you. In fact, you're committing blasphemy by even in being involved in that holiday, spoken of in some of its practices in the book of Jeremiah about the pagans actually cutting down a tree and then putting ornaments of gold and silver on it. Oh my goodness. And that was relating to those of the pagan nations. So what has happened to Christians? Where are they? I was even surprised to find out that the Mennonites and the Amish, that's one of the holidays that they actually adopt, despite how unplugged they are. Quite sad to hear that. So anyways, we're dealing with, are you a legal prostitute? And when we look at the word prostitute, I'm going to read it of Noah Webster's 1828, because I haven't used it as often in a lot of the more I would say the last probably year in videos, mainly because I didn't have one, and someone kindly provided me enough to get my hands on one of these. So I've got what appears to be a reproduction of the original Noah Webster's 1828. And I'm sure many that are watching the videos have seen this before. So I'm reading out of it today on prostitute. I normally read out of Samuel Johnson's dictionary to 1755, which these dictionaries a lot of times have based their substance on, because Samuel Johnson's dictionary of 1755 actually did a lot of the homework for the other writers of dictionaries that came later. So when we go to Noah Webster's dictionary of 1755 on the word prostitute, it says, to offer freely, to a lewd use or an indiscriminate lewdness. It says to give up to any vile or infamous purpose, to devote to anything base, to sell to wickedness, as to prostitute talents for the propagation of infidel principles, to prostitute the press to the publication of blasphemy. Don't forget that surname in the legal system says that it's superior to, this is a civil legal term that people carry in their names, that states when you carry a surname that you're saying that your legal title that you've taken on from the Roman civil system, from the origin of the Romans and their paganism, is superior to your Christian name. Over and above, superior to. That's what it means. And the fact that it's a fiction, it's a name added to one's real name, Canadian Gage Dictionary. We could go on and on. Black's Law even comes up with another definition of it, meaning a debt or a debtor. Therefore, how could you possibly win carrying a title like that, walking in any court of law? You just walked in and said, I'm the debtor, and I'll surety it. I'll show you up. I'll always show up and be there. But anyways, we go further. It says, to offer or expose upon vile terms or to unworthy persons. Prostitute, openly devoted to lewdness, sold to wickedness. Oh, isn't it amazing that your last name has arms that you take on, and they use that when you join the army because you're always referred to in that last surname or that arm's name. So they've told you you've been sold. Now, Jesus Christ purchased you, so you're his property under the highest authority, under your God-given name, your God-given Christian name. But don't worry, we can just deny that, and we can just take it on because it's so inconvenient to leave the world of the lewdness, the prostitution of selling one's body for money, as we'll get on further here, because it says prostitute, a base hireling, a mercenary, one who offers himself to infamous employments for hire. Now, you think you're not hiring yourself? You're not involved in some kind of wager game going on? Are you playing with your life? Are you somebody else's? Of course you are, when that title has nothing to do with truth. Now, there's only one other opposite side you could be on. So under the fiction, under the lie, well, isn't it interesting that Satan's called the father of the lie? So another way you could be called is he could be called the father of the fiction. So we have to understand that when you get involved in prostitution and disease, you also are dealing with being an idolater, but you come up with disease in that world, a diseasement, which leads to a kind of a term that we know there's a disease called syphilis in the world of immoral intercourse. And people that basically what we call sleep around or not moral individuals that are highly engaged in sex for just basically pleasure and basically entertainment. So when they get involved in the world of prostitution, because we'd always refer to as a prostitute as someone very dirty who's doing this on an ongoing level for money. But interestingly, anybody that's involved in the world as being a hireling are involved in actually selling their body for money, which in turn, the root meaning of idolater is basically hired servant wages. So could anybody not be an idolater that's in the world of commerce right now? Is not everybody engaged in selling their body for money a prostitute, a hireling? And would they not come with the disease that comes with part of the Latin civilis? Like, so this is really the disease that happens. You take on a civil identity, a civilis identity, which is very similar, as I said, to the almost in the enunciation of what we call syphilis, that comes from intercourse and lewd behavior and someone who is basically not a moral individual. So certainly, we're not trying to offend anybody here. We're trying to get down to the root of the truth, because sometimes it is necessary to reach those grounds of truth in order to take off or wash ourselves clean from false knowledge. And therefore, we've taken our time to go right into the words here. I've backed off a little bit on doing the word definitions because I found that we really weren't, for whatever reason, getting the views on those. But I thought doing those slowly each day was going to increase the vocabulary, but it appears that more than not the audience seems to want to have it blended into a subject matter. So I've taken it back to that subject matter for the time being. Not to say that we won't get into the words here and there. So I may just take out maybe only a few over the course of a week and place them within the schedule. But our key thing here is to get down to, the meat and potatoes. And if anybody is finding that any of this is incorrect, And this is the interesting thing about it. We will get thumbs down on some of the videos, but it's interesting. I don't get any emails from these people. So I think, to my extent, to my view right now, these are just people who, if we opened up the comment boards, would just be in there as trolls, which is what my understanding was in the past on people that have gone through this. So that's why we don't have the comments on there. If someone doesn't like what's here, they can just turn it off. There's no point debating it. Go on to some other site you will find truth with. But the fact that we, just to let you know, I do not get emails from these people who put their thumbs down, or they're not saying that they're putting their thumbs down, but they send me maybe cover up emails, acting like they're enjoying everything, but they don't tell me that they're actually in disagreement with the video. But it's mainly coming from people who are offended by the sovereignty-free men, or people that basically are sitting on their couches and sitting out there doing more of a judgmental than a teaching. They're playing the fact is that that it's easier to take the rafter out of their, or the sliver out of their brother's eye, instead of taking the rafter out of their own. So we hope that these videos will continue to bring clarity and get us to the final conclusion on where we're talking about the remedy. Now, I've held back on it because of something that's going on right now, and something I'm awaiting. And we're not talking about something in a dream or illusion, just something that I am not able to release to the audience of those true believers who want to get out of this Babylonian system. But until I am able to accomplish this, I have not spoken any further. But you have been told in the videos. You just maybe didn't realize it. So maybe you need to go back over the older videos and start seeing what's going on, because you're going to find out that it was already spoken to you, and maybe you're just wanting it somehow summarized on a platter for you. There's some really good videos that I will probably upload before the end of the weekend that will get into the clarity again on these birth records. And they're going to give you a better understanding, but not based on these sovereignty free man movements who couldn't explain their way out of a paper box of information because they don't know, and they're misleading you into a anger against the state that is not going to be a solution for you. So we're here to tell you there is peace. There is the power of peace that Christ left you as an inheritance, and you will never reach the power of the Prince of Peace, Jesus Christ, without calming yourselves down and getting yourselves into understanding of the words you're reading and going to the most powerful book, which is God's Word, the Bible.